is, life is hard, and we all suck miserably at times. Some would call that negative self-talk, but I call it honesty. It's the human condition, and we need to learn how to embrace it so we can grow and be better tomorrow. Most of the time, all it takes is a little awareness, a fresh perspective, and an understanding that sometimes life is what it is, but it is always what you make it. I'm Missy Hart, your host and guide to practical spirituality and being better. It's time to inhale some good shit and exhale the bullshit. Let's go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Good Shit Show. I am your host, Missy Hart, hanging out with you on this Friday, May the 20th of 2022, and I have some spectacular good shit for everybody, right? So let me just get into the basis of why I wanted to do this show. I think that's like a really great introduction to the me and the debut of the Good Shit Show, and it just really pretty easy, and in a nutshell, we need some more good shit to be put out there. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but things seem to be a bit funky these days out in the world and in our personal lives and all of that stuff. And so, we just really need to spark a little bit of good shit. And like it says in the intro, a lot of that just takes a little bit of awareness, a fresh perspective, and an understanding that sometimes life really is just what it is. Like you don't get to control all of your circumstances and all of your situations and all of that stuff, but we do get to choose our reaction to things and how we decide to show up for things. And all of those things are definitely in our control to a point. So practical spirituality, this is my new term for basically what it is that I feel like I put out into the world. And that is just bringing things down really to a kind of a common sense and an easier way of doing things, with kind of taking the woo out of the woo in a sense, but letting the woo be exactly what it is. And it's all of its magical, fun, glory. Woo stuff is in fact incredible, but a lot of people, I feel like, get turned off from that incredible stuff because they think it sounds odd or they think it sounds weird. So practical spirituality for me is just bringing things down to earth. It's bringing things that may sound batshit crazy to some people down to a level where they can be like, oh, that makes perfect sense. And then they can start employing different things into their lives and really just, I don't know, feeling good and feeling better. Because, like we said earlier, life is freaking hard. And it is, in fact, really freaking hard. It just is. All of us have, life is one big giant shit show most of the time. And so we need to learn how to insert the good shit into the actual shit show. Making sense? I think that makes perfect sense. So hello, everybody. I'm actually going to look at your comments. Good morning, Julie, Hayes, and Rhonda, Misty. This will be a little bit more like a live with me being able to see your comments. So hello, everybody. I'm so happy that you're here. For today's show, we're actually going to break down the woo. Like I said, I wanted to bring things down to earth a little bit for the people who maybe think stuff sounds crazy. And honestly, if I put myself in their shoes and just a little bit about like what it is that I do, right? So I'm a psychic and I talk to dead people. And in my bio on my website, that's actually what it says. I know things and I talk to dead people. And I think like that sounds so ridiculous. And as people make appointments with me, I've had a lot of couples here lately. And I know the men are sitting there like, okay, this is going to be so ridiculous. And they're not exactly even happy to be there. I feel like they've just been, drug along for the ride. And this is usually my intro into these sessions is, I know this sounds batshit crazy, right? And if I were to put myself into your shoes, I totally get it. I would have to say, oh, I talk to dead people, that it sounds nuts. Does it not? It sounds nuts. But there's a lot of other things that sounds nuts. Like when we're talking about vibes and when we're talking about energy and when we're talking about frequency and all of those other kind of woo terms. So I really want today to talk about those things and what they are, what they mean to you, and how you can actually start to take control of this energy and in these vibrations and learn how to actually use them to your advantage. You do get to use them, right? These are tools, and some of the most powerful tools that you can possibly wield in life is a control over your vibration, a control over your energy, and in essence, that controls the frequency that you're kind of dialing into. So let's start off with, for the most part, what are vibes, right? So this comes straight out of the Merriam Webster dictionary. This is important. So vibes, a person's emotional state or the atmosphere of a place as communicated to and felt by others. So basically, however it is that you're feeling, or however a place feels, that is the vibe that it is carrying. So moody people carry a pretty shitty vibe, right? If you're moody, if you're in a bad mood, if you're in whatever, you're literally sending out like bad vibes to the people around you and to the place that you're in. And I think that we all know those people. Some people actually live within that state of negative vibe where they're that way like 24/7, or maybe at least that's your interpretation of that. We're going to get into both of those things a little bit, but vibes change all of the time. They change based on the kind of day that you're having. They change based on where you are. They change based on the people that you're with. They change constantly. And then we have like the atmosphere in a place. Like, so my favorite example is Walmart versus Target. These two places have two completely different vibes. They are, well, just two completely different vibes. Plop yourself in a Walmart, see how you feel, and then move on over to Target and see how you feel. And it's funny, one of them is going to make you feel a little more at home most of the time, and one of those places will make you feel like a little bit of a fish out of water. I can honestly go into both spaces and feel semi at home in both for different reasons. And I think identifying those reasons are really important. For some people, Target is, well, it's a higher end, it's a little more expensive, it's a little more something, and that might make people uncomfortable, right? But if you send them on over to the Walmarts where things are a little bit cheaper, a little bit whatever, that's going to make certain people feel more comfortable while it makes certain people feel uncomfortable. This is like the atmosphere of a place, and then it's the vibration and the energy that it's carrying. So one of the things to like really think about, and you should do this with everything all the time, like what is your vibe? What is the vibe that you are carrying around with you? My vibes change constantly. Today I have a higher vibe. I'm feeling really good, but on days that I'm freaking out about stuff or worried about stuff or focusing maybe too much on things that have a tendency to bring me down, my vibe is going to change. And you know, the state of the world actually is playing into this, and I'm going to get into that because we have a whole lot of empathic people, and we have to address that part. So, what is an empathic person? Essentially, just a person who feels things stronger than other people. Usually, empathic people are people who are just rooted into emotions. I feel like my camera is so light. Okay. So, usually, these are just people who are a little more sensitive and aware of the vibes that people are putting out. And again, that's just feeling the emotion or the state of being that someone is having. So if you're an empathic person, there's a really good chance that if you're around someone who's moody, or around someone who's in a bad mood, or around someone who's I don't know, crabby, then they're literally going to make you feel all of those things. And I'm sure a lot of my listeners experience that. And again, that changes from day to day because people's moods change from day to day. But empathic people right now, especially, just because things are odd, and they have been. And I'm not trying to make this like a political thing. It's just shit has been weird for a few years now. And we can't deny that. And, that means that we really have to talk about these things. We have to be very open and honest with the fact that shit is just weird. and it's making us as people feel weird, and it's shifting vibes in the earth and all of that stuff, right? So we not only do we have our own personal vibe, we have our own personal vibe, everybody around you has their own personal vibe. We have something called a collective vibe or a collective consciousness, and within this collective vibe, that's literally like how the 7 billion people who inhabit the planet are feeling. What is the overall vibe of these 7 billion people? Because now these vibes put off energy, and we're going to get to that just in a few minutes too. But these vibes put off this energy, and as that is happening, that's an actual force. Energy is kind of matter, right? You're matter. You are a physical human being that we can touch, that we can see. You are actually living matter. It is what you are. Anything that is putting off a vibration is in fact putting out an energy. And like I said, with this collective consciousness, our energy kind of comes together to form these energy fields and this collective energy, which is huge, by the way. These things are absolutely enormous. So because the world has been so weird for a couple few years now, the collective vibration, the collective consciousness is weird. And as a result of the weirdness, we're actually seeing really weird things. Like we are seeing a disruption in kind of the normal status quo. And some of these disruptions in the normal status quo is, we're not able to have conversations like we used to have. All of a sudden, that's kind of turned into a thing. We have crime rates that have just kind of gone wonky. They are very high, and people's moral compass right now seems to be a little off and a little odd. But again, because we're living in a low vibration and a low energy, that actually makes perfect sense. Because, when we thinking in terms of a vibration, right? Like we said, that there are, someone who's crabby or someone who's moody is carrying around a shitty vibe. That's what's going on. Someone who's able to go in, commit acts of crime and whatever, clearly they're carrying a lower vibe. People who are afraid are carrying a lower vibe. A lot of these vibes are going to come in the form of an emotion. So part of what has made things so weird over the past few years is just these different emotions that have kind of permeated and saturated our beings. We have lived in fear. We have lived alone. A lot of us, like we were, in these spaces. I still know people who are not quite ready to put themselves out into public yet because they're so afraid that they may be sick or get someone else sick. And that, is an understandable thing after everything that we've lived through over the past couple years. However, the vibration that carries is super low. It's fear. It's not good. So in terms of let's like look at this on on an energetic scale. So there was a great doctor, Dr. David Hawkins, who actually figured out how to measure the frequency and the energy of different emotions and different states of being, right? So on the low end of this scale, we actually have things like shame, we have guilt, we have fear, we have embarrassment, we have mistrust, we have anger, we have hate, we have division, we have all of these things. That would be a lower end, and this is going to carry a very low kind of a vibration. On the higher ends of this scale, we have acceptance, we have love, we have joy, we have gratitude, we have freedom, we have enlightenment, we have just really great feeling things. So this gives you kind of this, understanding of what these different states of beings are. So if people are living in a space where they don't feel like they can go out and be around people because they're carrying fear, that's a very low vibration. And so now they're putting out a very low vibration, not only within themselves, but energy carries, right? So you are sharing your vibe with everybody all day long. Then it's really hard, but that's true. If you go into the store in a bad mood, you're literally going to be sharing your shitty bad mood vibes out there. And I don't want anybody to feel bad about being human. I mean, we do get to feel shitty. We are human beings who have all of these different emotions, and we are meant to experience all of them. But, you know, maybe try to keep those things to yourself a little bit. And I'm not saying to stay home at that point or anything if you're in a mood, but you can maybe choose not to react snarkily to someone because you're in a bad mood. You can choose to just like, you know, just ignore people, smile, walk away, do something, just, you know, whatever. You don't have to share all of the love with people all of the time. Anyway, so within this emotional scale, right, understanding that that's what you're putting out, the last few years of our lives has been filled with a whole lot of negative stuff. It has been coming at us for a long time. If you guys have been listening to me for any time at all, then I have openly talked about these things consistently, actually. And what I'm noticing now is that there's definitely a lightening, but damn, are people still on edge? It's like, I think that, you know, people like, we have news now coming out of New York and stuff that's showing that, oh crap, you know, these things are starting to elevate again, and we have all of this stuff. So you can kind of watch this increase and this shift in the vibe where we like really felt like shit, things are getting back to normal. We're outside, we're, you know, gathering with family, and we're doing all of these things. And now those things feel a little bit threatened already. My dad just bought a place in downtown Chicago. He's living off a Lakeshore Drive and he is enjoying it. And now, because of the news coming out of New York, it's like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to enjoy the things that I I actually moved here to do? So there's a real fear going on about people. Are they going to lock down again? Are they going to not be able to go to work? Are they, you know, just all of this stuff? And again, we've been bombarded with these things for a couple few years, and it is affecting the global consciousness. And this is why a lot of my empathic friends, and again, people who feel things on a deeper level, this has really been a struggle. This has really been a struggle. And so I feel like having this conversation today and understanding what this is, that you can actually be, you can put yourself in the driver's seat, I guess, where you can actually shift and manipulate those vibrations and choose to move into something that feels a little bit better. And when you do that, not only are you going to put some really good shit out there, you yourself are going to be feeling a lot better. And that is always the most important thing. Always. So I know you have a lot of people here as far as comments and stuff go. I'm just going to flat out ask you, like, what vibration do you think that you predominantly live in? This is really important. And not just, I mean, just on your average day to day, what is your vibe that you feel that you're carrying around? Do you have a lot of stuff going on? Are you feeling kind of negative? Are you feeling depleted? Are you like happy, happy, joy, joy, where you're feeling great all of the time? And if you are feeling great all of the time, why do you think that is? If you're not feeling so great, why do you think that is? I think these are all very important things to look at. So you just have like an understanding of what it is that you're doing and why. So mine, I mean, just getting down to some real stuff here, my personal vibe has definitely been very up and down for this entire roller coaster that we've been living, right? And so it is very up and down. It's just one day I feel like I'm riding high and I'm doing really good, and the next day I feel like I'm dipping down a little bit. I know that I really consciously had to make sure that I'm balancing out the way that I'm feeling. You know, I just have to balance it, and it's work to balance. That is the other thing that I've noticed, is that I don't feel like I'm able to maintain anything for super long amounts of time without like really having to go in and do something to make sure that I'm um you know, shifting from thing to thing. And again, you're always going to shift. Like, so your vibes, again, they're going to change all the time. There's nothing wrong with that. But kind of figuring out where you are mostly is really important. So I'm going to tell you guys a little story by way of me. I actually am someone who developed a horrible panic disorder years ago in my life. It actually happened while I was a stay-at-home mom. So I had 3 kids at home, and well, life is very busy when you have 3 kids at home. And I started getting these horrible panic attacks. Some of this was actually associated with being a medium. It kind of started there, where out in public, I would start restaurants very specifically. I would start to feel like super odd in my body. I remember feeling like this weight, this heaviness in my chest, and this weirdness in my head. And I learned eventually that I was actually just picking up on energy. Energy is very palpable. So if you're someone who like goes out into public and you start feeling uncomfortable, well, then just know there's a really good chance, and you should always have this checked by a doctor, but there's a really good chance that you're actually just feeling the energy that's filling up a space, right? So, like, let's go back to the Walmart example. Going into Walmart is incredibly busy all of the time. I don't know if you guys have noticed, every time I drive by a Walmart parking lot, the place is jam packed. And so there's literally energy moving in and out of Walmart all day long. It stays busy, even and with that energy that has been there, there is just a feel to it. So who like goes into stores and feels just odd? Does anybody like go into stores and feel uncomfortable or anxious, or just again like a weighty, or your head feels weird? Anywhere out in public this can happen as the energy is increased, because we have so many people in these places. Like Walmart's just a great example. It can be a concert, it could be a bar, it could be a restaurant, it could be the Target, it doesn't really matter. But because there's a lot of people there, the vibration is naturally amped. It just is. And you can feel energy and you can feel vibes. So what winds up happening typically is that because the energy is up and it's big and whatever, it gets uncomfortable, and you can actually physically feel that stuff in your body. So again, I would get this weighted feeling in my upper body, usually into the chest area, which would then make me feel like I wasn't breathing right. My head would feel a little heavy or even loopy. I remember like telling my mom, like, I feel like I'm stoned, but I'm not. Like, that's exactly how I would describe it. Like, I have this stoned feeling, and I've not done anything to have said stoned feeling. This is odd, right? It turns out it's energy. Anyway, I am sitting home with my children, being very busy, right? And I'm having all of these panic attacks. And I mean really bad panic, full on panic attacks where my heart rate is friggin' thumping. I cannot breathe. I feel like crap. It's hard to move from one room to the other, because as soon as I would get up to like move from the living room into the kitchen, just that little bit of exertion, that little bit of energy would cause my heart rate to go even more berserk. It was terrible, down to dry heaving, down to just feeling absolutely awful. Now, I had no idea what was causing those things, because I'm busy, right? I'm busy taking care of my kids. My life is good. I'm not out in public where the vibes are absolutely taking me over, because I'm feeling other things. I couldn't blame it on that, because I was in my safe space at home with my kids. And I was a positive kind of a person. I mean, everything that flew out of my mouth was sunshine and fucking rainbows, people. I mean, I was like good stuff, right? I'm saying good things. I'm doing all of the right things, and I'm still having this horrible struggle. And then one day, within like a fraction of a second, I actually heard my brain, and I figured out that I was not positive. I was not sunshine and rainbows. Of course, everything that was coming out of my mouth were those things, miss positivity. But the things that were happening on the inside of me did not match that at all. I was actually the most negative person I had probably ever met, and I was filled with fear. And I know that this is so common, especially for women, especially for young women who've had babies. I had this like insane fear of dying and leaving my kids. So anything that I felt in my body, I like became kind of hypersensitive to it. If I had an ache in my elbow, I certainly had some form of cancer. If I had a headache, I had a brain tumor. If I had a cold, my immune system was shutting down. You know what I mean? Like it was like really crazy. And I didn't even know that I was thinking those things. I had no clue that those were the thoughts running through my brain. How on earth are you able to function and live and, I don't know, speak and act and do things while not being aware of what your insides are doing? It's so hard to fathom. So there's this man by the name of Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's one of my absolute favorites. And he actually came out with some statistics. They hooked people up to all of these brain monitors and did all of these things. And he actually found that on average, we think upwards of like 90,000 thoughts per day. And of those 90,000 thoughts per day, we're actually only aware of about 10% of those thoughts, meaning we only know about like 90 of the thoughts that we're thinking out of 90,000. That to me is absolutely insane. And we actually have to go to break. When we come back from the break, I'm going to basically share with you why it is so important that you understand what it is that you're thinking, that you understand that inner dialogue, because this is going to largely shape the energy and the vibe and the frequency that you are living in and that you are attached to. So hang in there. We will be back in just a couple of minutes on WLTK-DB.com.
A certified spiritual life coach, animal communicator, past life regression, and a psychic medium. This is Charlie Lynn. Charlie Lynn and Chat with Charlie work with you to bring communication and understanding from spirit to those looking to gain insight. Charlie Lynn's spiritual journey has brought her to you, so take advantage and contact Charlie Lynn today. Book a reading, indulge in some Reiki work, or take the next step in your life with some spiritual life coaching. No matter, Charlie Lynn is here to help you. Search Chat with Charlie on Facebook. That's Chat with Charlie on Facebook.
Hey guys, you are back with the Good Shit Show on WLTK-DB.com. I'm your host, Missy Hart, talking about some good shit. We are talking about energy, vibes, and frequency today. And right before the break, we were talking about how our thoughts basically shape what it is that, or how it is that we're feeling. And we're talking about, well, debilitating anxiety and that kind of stuff. And I was just looking through your guys' comments because I had asked the question, basically, how are you guys feeling? I know someone said mostly positive, but can fluctuate. I did have someone who said that they were struggling, basically, you know, with keeping their vibe up. I resonate with that oh so much. And I want you to know, it does not mean that you're broken. It just means that you really have to take control of the way that you're feeling. And the best way to start that, honestly, is to pay attention to the way that you're thinking. So what I discovered about myself is everything coming out of my mouth was so positive. I mean, truly, like when I'm telling you guys, like unicorns could have landed on my head. I was so positive. And then I did hear that I was not being positive actually at all. And I found that I was very negative, and I found that I was very, I was saying things that were so based in fear that I had to accept the actual truth and reality that I was creating all of these panic attacks that were happening to me. It was not coming from an outside source at all. Actually, it was coming from me. Now, the outside source, so let me, you know, I did ask you guys the question about being an empath and how you feel out in public. So you can feel things that don't belong to you. You absolutely can, and it can permeate your being. It can absolutely shift your vibe. It can shift Usually what happens is it's so uncomfortable that it starts to cause us to freak out a little bit. And then once that happens, now we start to panic. But within that, there's actually a lot going on in the body. We'll talk about all of that stuff. So it is the most crazy thing that I learned as I was going through my own kind of journey to healing. And like I said, I'm listening to these thoughts that I'm going to die, I'm going to leave my kids, there's something wrong with me, fear, fear, fear. I just had no clue it was happening. So then I started paying attention to when it was happening. And I was absolutely shocked and mortified to find that I could be so busy. So, you guys, it's not like I'm like laying on my ass thinking these bad thoughts every day, all day. I was busy. I had two toddlers and like an 8-year-old. You know, your life with two babies and an 8-year-old is friggin' busy. So, I mean, I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm doing baths, I'm playing with my children, we're going outside, I'm doing all of these things. And I was mortified to find out that I could do all of those things. I could handle all of my daily responsibilities, take care of everything, play with my kids, make dinner, give a bath, do whatever, and think all of those bad thoughts at the same time. How is that even possible? So, like, you're outside, you may feel like, I don't know why I'm feeling this way. I'm busy doing all of this other stuff, but I'm telling you, what happens is you can be on autopilot most of your day. So we have learned and memorized our daily routine for the most part, right? So you don't have to think about most of what it is that you're doing. Like, you need to cook dinner. The thought is usually like, oh, what am I going to make? Once you figured it out and you have everything sitting there, you can kind of just make it because you've made it a million times before. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but like I tend to rotate through the same menu items, like, so I don't have to give much thought to the things that I'm cooking anymore. I usually don't even have to use a measuring cup or a measuring spoon anymore. Now it's just like you dump everything together and you bake it. Like, so like you're on autopilot. That's the point. If you're trying out a new recipe, now you have to like, pay more attention, and you got to pick up the damn cookbook like 100 times or look at the picture like a million times because you forgot. I do that all the time. Or like throw the box in the garbage and have to go get it out of the garbage to read the directions again because you forgot. So when you don't actually have to pay attention to something because you already know how to do it, you know how to give your kids a bath, you know how to mop the floor, you know how to dust your house, you know how to drive to the store, like your route home. How many times have you gotten in the car and you drive home and all of a sudden like you're just home and you're like, damn, I don't even remember like getting to that stoplight or something. We are operating on autopilot, literally. You don't even have to think about what it is that you're doing. And what happens in the space of autopilot is that your brain is left to do and think about whatever the hell it wants to think about. So if you're not in control of your thoughts, if you're not in like awareness of your thoughts, then you're not in control of your thoughts. Then in essence, you are not in control of how you're feeling. And then you're not in control of what your body's doing. And there's a lot that goes to this. So let's break down the brain body connection, because this is like one of the most important things. It turns out that, again, like I said, your brain just starts getting away with itself and you're not even aware that it's happening. This is the part of you where the brain is just filtering through all of these thoughts. Then you're on autopilot doing all of these things, right? Whatever. But what actually happens? So your body is filled with different receptors, hormone receptors, chemical receptors, basically that however it is that you're feeling, right, is going to hit one of those receptors. And it doesn't matter, like even if it's pain, right? So like you feel pain because you bumped your knee and there was a signal sent up to your brain that actually tells your body to send you pain, so you know to take your hand out of the fire, or that to rest your injured leg or whatever. It actually sends. So like just going back to the bump in the knee thing, when you hit your knee, right, there's a signal that is sent up to your brain that causes the pain to let you know that you've been hurt. And at the same time, your body is creating and it is sending millions of blood cells to that area. This is what creates the bruise, right? And this is how it's going to heal that part, that injury. Or if you scraped it, your body is so intelligent. Again, we have the pain based on a signal that has been sent to the brain. And then, our body sends things there to create a scab. It bleeds. You actually bleed. So things don't get into your body that might cause an infection or something, right? So your entire system is perfectly designed to be able to fix itself. And this is very true for how we're feeling as well. So if you're in a state of not feeling good, if you're in a state of anxiety or even depression, or you're just feeling yuck, right? If you're sitting around feeling yuck all of the time, what happens is your body is going to create hormones that reinforce the way that you're feeling. This is what happens. So if you're feeling super crummy, or like me with the anxiety, and I told you I had to, accept the responsibility that I'm actually, in fact, causing and creating my adrenaline rushes. So what happened is I'm feeling this anxiety. First of all, I'm telling myself, Missy, you're going to die. You're going to leave your kids. You're going to die. You have cancer. It's horrible. You suck. Life is over. Nobody's going to be here to take care of your kids. That's not mom. I mean, my husband could have taken care of my kids, but let's face it, dads are not moms. And I mean that with the utmost of love, but it's just true. Dads are not moms, right? Anyway, so I'm feeding myself all of these negative, horrible, awful thoughts, and my body is responding by what? It's responding by making cortisol, and it's responding by making adrenaline, which is now causing these horrible panic attacks. It's what's causing my heart to beat rapidly. It's what's causing me to feel breathless. It's causing all of the stuff. But it all actually started with the feeling of fear, and with me telling myself that these bad things were going to happen. So basically, if you kind of rewrite that program a little bit, and I forgot the most important part. Your body memorizes these chemical compositions, right? So like if you've been down and feeling depressed or anxious for a little while, you're actually going to find that those things settle in very comfortably. And now it's like this habit to feel that way. So I had to battle, like leaving my home was horrible for a while. I mean, like my husband had to go to the store all the time. He had to do all of those things. Leaving my home was, you had just taken me out of my safe place. I'm telling you, I could not leave my home. That's how bad these things have gotten. And so now anytime that I wanted to leave my home, or we were going to have to leave my home, my body would start to just make those chemicals. My body would start to freak out so bad. It would create the adrenaline and create the cortisol, and it would be hell. So like the entire time in the car, even if I was driving 10 minutes away to the store, or the entire time in the store, I'm in panic mode, absolute panic mode. And all it started with was knowing that I was going to go out, and it made me feel very uncomfortable. It was just an awful cycle of yuck for me. I've lived this. It is awful. But again, what happens is I'm feeling a certain kind of a way. This is where it starts. So we're having these thoughts, first of all. So we'll start with the thought. So I'm thinking about that I'm going to have to leave my house. A panic disorder, this one is interesting. So if you're someone who has panic, let me just tell you, a panic disorder is when you're actually locked into the fear of your next panic attack, because they're horrible and you feel like you're going to croak, right? So now a panic disorder is the fear of your next panic attack, because, they're just awful. So we have these constant thoughts of, oh my gosh, this might cause me to panic. I don't think I can do this. I don't want to do this, blah, 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 right? So we have those thoughts, and this generates a feeling. And it is actually the feeling that is going to get sent up to the brain. And that feeling, once it's in the brain, your brain is going to make the chemicals that go along with however it is that you're feeling. So if you need to feel fear, this is really great, because this is what might save your life, or might help you save someone else's life. this adrenaline is what gives you the strength to like lift a car off of a human body, or be able to run really fast when, you know, you shouldn't be able to run so fast because you're out of shape and, you know, whatever. It's just, but anyway, adrenaline is like a really great thing. It is so very important. But it sucks when you're living in an adrenaline state for no freaking reason, like I was, or if you're living in a depressive kind of a state, or just an anxious state where maybe there's not actual panic that goes along with it, but you're just feeling anxious and feeling crappy and feeling blah, right? So again, the thoughts start the feeling. The feeling is sent up to the brain, essentially, or to the receptors that are all over your body that's sent up to the brain. And then your body reacts accordingly and makes chemicals. And so this can keep us locked into these, you know, shittier vibes, these shittier states of being, right? Because that's actually all that a vibe is. It is your state of being for that time. I homeschool my kids, and like we were, you know, have learned about the being verbs. You know, do you guys remember your state of being verbs? So am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been. So it's basically how you be. It's you know, how you were being. It's just that that is your vibe. Your vibe is how you are right now, how you have been in the past, how you know, because a lot of the times we go back into the past. Like we constantly kind of flop backwards. All of the times there's things that we respond to that we would call triggers, right? And so the past is almost constantly living within us. That is another just interesting thing to note. I won't get into that too much because I feel like, you know, we're gonna spend a lot of time on that. But the way that we live in the past, again, because something has happened, we just have kind of, we remember what that felt like, and we go into a state of being based on that. So let's say that I don't know, Aunt June is having the family gathering, but every single time that you go to Aunt June's house, there is a conflict of some sort with June's daughter, and you know, something something something. And it causes you like great upheaval, and you just blah, right? What happened? Like as soon as we hear going to Aunt June's house, we're already going to react and respond to something that's previously happened. Does this make sense? So like basically, because that's happened at June's house before, and because that's the norm, and maybe it is just the norm, and it's going to happen every time, but your bodies are already going to trigger a chemical reaction based on that past event. And this is true for basically everything. So we are constantly living in the past. And this is where it makes like going into your past and healing those things like super important, because whether you like it or not, and I don't care how much work you've done on yourself or not, you're going to carry the past around with you like a freaking leaded weight. You know, now you can definitely get to better spaces with that, and it's really important because you can move into better spaces. However, when you understand that you're reacting to those things, it's going to help you with the now very much. It's just like you need to be aware of that. So all in all, the goal here is to understand where it is that you're vibrating on a whole, and like around who, like it changes constantly. So how do you feel? What is your vibe around your family members? What is your vibe around your friends? What is your vibe at work? What is your vibe at home? What is your vibe at the ball game? What is your vibe at the store? What is whatever? And then kind of address these things individually, honestly. Like, you know, if there is some type of a weird vibe thing at work, then you have to get down to what the weird vibe thing at work is overall. What are the vibes that you're carrying around from the past? Again, we all do it. We all do it, even if it's not an intentional thing. You're just going to carry that around, and then it's going to cause you to react a certain kind of a way. So this is where awareness of yourself and awareness of what it is that you're thinking and how you're feeling should be honestly one of the most important things in your life. This is the most life-changing practice, I promise, because if we're not aware of the things that we're doing, how can we ever shift into something better? Again, this is going to make up your vibe. This is the vibe that you're putting out to the world. How you're feeling, that's everything. So that's the vibe that you're not only like living in and sitting in and being. It is the vibe that you're putting out. And basically, whatever vibe you're putting out has an energy, it has momentum. This is what like actually makes it so, right? So your vibe, let me like get to my little, I wrote down some energy things. Are you ready? So energy, this is again back to Merriam-Webster. We're going to go into, I had some people. So people who are just now joining in, we started this conversation about vibes and actually what they are. And so let me start back there. I'm going to read off vibes and energy like together. So vibes. Vibes are a person's emotional state or the atmosphere of a place as communicated to and felt by others. So essentially, moody people give off shitty vibes. Happy people give off happy vibes. They're good. Animals, they're unconditional love. They're wonderful. Animals have fantastic vibes. Whereas energy is the capacity of acting or being active, right? So that's momentum, that's matter in action, doing things. Another term that they have on here, a usually positive spiritual force. Well, I'm going to call bullshit on that one right now. A usually positive spiritual force. Guess what? Usually negative spiritual forces can totally be negative. So that one, just know you can be a super positive person and have a very negative kind of a something, as I was doing. I told you I was not aware of my negativity because everything coming out of my mouth was sunshine and rainbows, while the inner dialogue was actually awful, very negative. So a vigorous exertion of power, again, energy, right? And then this one was my favorite. A fundamental entity of nature that is transferred between parts of a system in the production of physical change within the system and usually regarded as the capacity for doing work. So let me just break that down a little bit. A fundamental entity of nature. So literally everything is energy. That's just, it is what it is. Every single thing and person and place and whatever, every object, every item, every living being, even inanimate objects, right? Like that's physics. I will spare you the lengthy commentary on that, but everything, it has an energy to it. So a fundamental entity of nature that is transferred between parts of a system. Earlier, we talked about the collective consciousness. We are a part of a system, right? At home, you're a part of a system with the people that you live with. At work, you're a part of a system with the people that you work with. At the store, you're a part of the system within the walls of that building and down the aisles. We have like shopping etiquette. There's just, you're part of a system. And there is a physical change within that system, and that is basically the vibes, right? So as things are going, we have this exchange of energy and this exchange of vibrations, and this is why everything is energy, and this is why how you feel is very important. This is why how other people feel are very important. Like if you're at work and like I said, if that is a place that you don't feel good, you really have to evaluate like the why. So what is it actually? Is it the actual work that you're doing it? Is the vibe of the place? Is it a vibe of a specific person that you're working with that might be a little off-putting to you and maybe kind of assaulting your senses? It does happen. Are you working with someone who's completely moody and just kind of horrible to everybody? Whatever. So figure out the reasons why your vibes are feeling off, or whatever. Just identify it. It is one of the most important things, again, is living in that awareness of what these things are. So it turns out, you guys, so the energy, vibes are feeding in energy. Energy is feeding a frequency. Okay. So your vibe, again, that is what you're sending out. And within that vibe, because you're sending it out, it is now energy, because this is what you're pushing out there. It is now an action, even if you don't mean it to be. it has a life force. You know, have you guys ever been around someone like super moody and you can just feel it, and it is capable of changing the way that you're feeling. Do you understand that? Like, I don't know, if you're around someone who's in like a really shitty bad mood, you're going to eventually get into a really bad mood yourself. It's usually, again, energy transfers. It does, it carries, it transfers. So let me read to you. I love this. It turns out that Einstein, like Albert Einstein, was all about energy. And I'm really hoping to have a great guest one day. And this is what he does. And I have a message out to him right now, and I'm hoping that he can come on where we can actually talk about the physics and the science behind these things. It is absolutely fascinating. And let me just give you like an example of that, because I want to show you guys just how cool this stuff is. So they did this study with these monks, right? They put these monks in an absolute frigid place. They put them in like a place that was like below freezing. And they're just wearing their little monk suit, which they're literally like half naked, you know, like little half naked monks sitting in this place, freezing to death. And what they did, the study on was they wanted to see if the monks would be able to, using their mind, raise their body temperature. So that was the goal. Just using their minds, we stick them into this really icy place, and can they raise their body temperature? And so these monks sat in this meditative space, right? And they did whatever it is that they do. They thought about being warm, and they visualized it, and they lived it, and they breathed it. And before you know it, these monks were able to raise their body temperature so high that they actually had steam rolling off of their bodies. This is, I mean, you could see the actual temperature shift taking place because now we have steam happening. It was just one of the most incredible studies. Your mind is oh so powerful. And your mind starts with the thoughts that you're thinking. So when you start to live in this awareness of your thoughts and understand that it's actually causing things to happen in your body, but it's also dialing you into the frequency of the things that you're receiving, it is oh so important. So here's something, an Einstein quote actually. Albert Einstein says that everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy. This is physics. So it essentially, understanding again your vibration, your energy is dialing you into a frequency. Well, what does that mean? If you were to put everything in terms of a radio channel, right? So let's say that you really want to listen to WLTK-DB, and you're sitting in your car and you're trying to dial it in, and you're getting that static, you're getting the fuzz where it's like it's in there, but you kind of get kicked out. So you can hear like Missy Hart talking, and it's, you know, great. You hear like a little word and then it's static, or you're hearing something completely different who's not even her. Like I think we've all done that with the radio, right? So basically, everything has an energy field, right? So let's just talk about like money has its own energy field. Good relationships has an energy field. Illness and wellness and health things have their own energy fields, right? So like if you look at something like cancer, it's a pretty shitty example, but it is a great example. Or cancer has its own energy field. And anyone who has ever participated in the field of cancer has done something to grow that field of energy surrounding that energy field. And what I mean by that basically is we're growing it based on what we're putting into it. We're throwing energy at it. So the people who have had cancer have contributed to this field of cancer. The people who have supported someone going through cancer have donated energy. They've literally put into the field. The people who are researching cancer are sowing into the field. The people who are treating cancer, such as the doctors and the nurses, have thrown energy into this field. The people who have written books about their stories or about their survival or whatever have thrown energy into the field of cancer. And now we have this very large field of cancer, right? Now, we have very bad parts to the field of cancer, clearly, and we have very good parts to the field of cancer, clearly. However, because we're throwing energy at cancer specifically, we're specifically growing the field of energy, basically. The bigger that energy fields get, the more people experience it, the more people notice it, the more people see it. It grows the field, right? And now that doesn't have to be an all bad thing. And I didn't it's the point is we're feeding it, whether we're feeding it in a good way or bad way. So like at one point you're kind of better, instead of focusing on that field of cancer, you're almost better off focusing on a field of wellness. So like we should be creating the field of wellness surrounding those things. We should be creating and growing a field of support and stuff like that, instead of supporting cancer. So like this is like what it is that you're feeding your attention to, you're growing the field. So there's several different like subfields in that. Like I said, like I hope I'm not like ranting too much and this makes sense. But so we have the field of cancer, and that's growing. Nobody wants to get cancer. It's a scary friggin' thing. I mean, that's true. It's a fear for everybody. Um, but as we're feeding that field, we're actually growing that field. Really important to know. If we gave just as much attention to the field of wellness, we would actually grow that field. And now this would be an overwhelming energy field, and that would be bigger than the shitty energy field. Make sense? So like as we're tuning into, like I said, we have these frequencies, this radio show, this whatever that we're trying to get into, these vibes and the energy, everything gets a little bit muddy from time to time. So like let's use that radio station example as like money and abundance and those types of things. So let's say that money is the goal, and we have our radio station, and WLTK-DB is where we're going to find this money, right? And so we're trying to dial in to WLTK-DB to get this money. And again, like we hear it for a minute. We can hear Missy Hart's voice. There's money at the end of that voice, and we can hear it. But all of a sudden now we have the static. Now we have interference. There's something else going on. Now we're hearing some other host of some other station that we don't even know what it is. Different songs playing. I'm listening to Elvis. Who knows what's happening? But we can't dial it in quite so. Why is that? It's because there is something, a part of us, that is actually missing. We're not matching the frequency of the things that we want. So if money is the goal, and if you are putting out an energy or a vibe of fear about money, and let's just say that fear comes from not having enough in the past, not a fear of not being able to pay your bills, a fear that you're not going to have enough money, a fear that once I spend this money, I'm not going to have this money again for 2 more weeks or whatever. You know what I mean? There's just lots of reasons to feel shitty about money. So if we're saying that we really want to be in frequency with this money on WLTK-DB, however, we're living in a fear that we're not going to be able to get it, we're not going to have enough, it's whatever, then we're not actually matching the frequency of the money that is found at this station. You can't do it. It doesn't match. And so you will never, ever, ever find yourself actually in line or aligned with having the money that it is that you desire, right? It is an energy and a frequency thing. So wellness, it's the same thing. If you're doing things because you're afraid of being ill, or because you're afraid that something might happen, you've literally just split the vibe. Like, do things for wellness sake. If you want to be well, define why you want to be well, because it just feels good. Go with just it feels good. Don't go with like, don't eat really healthy because you're afraid that if you don't, you're going to croak. You're going to croak anyway. I mean, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. However that happens, you're going to croak. You're a human. So focus on doing things for wellness to be well. Focus on doing things for wellness because that's what makes you feel good. So like doing things out of a state of fear, while fear is a great motivator, it certainly is a good motivator. It's not necessarily wrong to have fear. It's very beneficial. But if we're living in a space of and doing things for fear, well, you've just literally split a vibration. Does that make sense? You've split into this negative kind of vibration, and now you're feeding a field out of fear, and that is not going to bring you great things, honestly speaking. I mean, it can't bring you great things, honestly speaking, right? So learning how to, again, the most important things here are that you live in an awareness of what you're thinking, how you're feeling, and what you're dialing yourself into. So I figured it out the hard way. Like I said, I had this horrible panic disorder that I had to learn. And I heard it so clear. And I know that I heard it so I could eventually share this with people. You know, that's the other thing to this is there is synchronicity to your suffering, I promise. You know, so like I've been able to help a whole lot of people with their anxiety issues and with their depression issues or their panic issues because, well, I've lived it and I understand it, and it sent me on this journey to figure things out. And you know, so it all had a really great purpose in the end, but it was miserable as shit going through it. So a lot of what you're going through, believe it or not, there is an alignment and a synchronicity there that, you know, sometimes we have these experiences so we can be in service to other people and we can help them. You don't even know who that person is. It could be your daughter, it could be, you know, your son's wife down the road. It could be a person at work or someone that you've met at the store that, you know, you just strike up this conversation and you're able to say, oh my gosh, I went through that. Why don't you try this? You know, so there are beneficial reasons and really great things for having said experiences, really. So use that as a little bit of fuel and a little bit of motivation to um, I don't know, I guess understand like why you're going through sometimes things feel like punishment, but it's really not. It's not as much of a punishment sometimes as we feel it is, but a necessary experience. It is these things that help us to grow in all actuality, right? And it's just like another very important thing. So again, the good shit that I'm leaving you for this week is that you are essentially in control of the things that you are bringing to you. You are in control of the things that you are putting out there. You can have some control over the way that your body is feeling based on the chemicals that it's creating, and all of that stuff. And how you feel can actually affect other people, right? As long as it's like a legit kind of a something. People know like when someone's not being very authentic. I think that people have got like bullshit radars. You know what I mean? So like, you know, if someone is trying to, I don't know, like there's nothing wrong with, in a sense, trying to bullshit your way through something. But like if you're saying all of these positive things to people all the time, and if you're not actually feeling positive yourself, then people are going to catch on eventually and figure out that, well, you kind of don't match what you're selling. It's important. So anyway, again, you're good shit for the week, you guys, really. This show is all about inhaling some bullshit or some bullshit, inhaling some good shit and exhaling the bullshit. That's like truly. So, you know, soak in this week being aware of the thoughts that you're thinking. Start being aware of how it is that you're feeling. Start noticing what it is that you're putting out to other people. And then start making simple shifts, right? So, like, honest to God, if you guys can practice feeling good for just a couple of minutes every day, like 2 minutes every day, focus on a gratitude, focus on something that makes you feel happy. Don't try to feel happy about your bullshit. Like, you don't have to sit around and, like, okay, back to the money thing. And I know if you've been listening to me, it's just my favorite example. Money, it's a thing for me. It has always been a thing for me. And I used to say these affirmations constantly as I'm not feeling good about money, right? So like I feel like I'm broke. I don't have enough money. And we were struggling at the point in time that I'm feeling this way. And I'm listening to myself say these affirmations about how money is flowing easily and abundantly into my life. But the truth was, money was not flowing easily and abundantly into my life, but the bills sure were, you know, like, or the things that broke that I had to spend money on, or my kids needing new clothing and new shoes that I just didn't have the money for. It was certainly very real that I couldn't take my family to go do things. I remember like we were planning a zoo trip at a free zoo when my kids were tiny. And we couldn't go because we couldn't afford the free zoo because, you know, nothing is ever really free. You have to pay for gas money and that kind of stuff. And I was so devastated that we just couldn't do those things. So I'm saying these affirmations this whole time: money flows easily and abundantly into my life. Well, bullshit. It was not flowing easily, nor was it flowing abundantly, right? It was not. And so my point with this is, do not get caught up with having to feel good about something that you don't feel good about. It was the smartest thing to just leave the money thing alone for me. Don't try to, like, you know, sometimes you got to fake it till you make it a little bit as far as feeling good about something. Like when you're not feeling good about, when you're just not feeling good and you're feeling a little depressed, you're feeling blah. Well, of course, fake it till you make it. But the way that you do that is you're kind of tricking yourself into creating new chemicals. You're tricking yourself into, you know, again, shifting thoughts and that kind of stuff. So the goal here is to just feel good. Don't try to feel good about the things that you don't feel good about. Don't even start there. That is spirituality suicide right there. Like, and people just don't get that. That is not practical. It's not great because you're not going to match that. It's bullshit, and your body knows it, and your brain knows it, and the universe knows it. Your vibes are not going to carry that feeling at all, right? So what you can do is, for 2 minutes every single day, feel good about something that you legit feel good about. Just appreciate it. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a crystal. It certainly doesn't have to be a crystal. It could be your favorite pair of pajamas. It could be your favorite soft shirt. It could be a pillow or food or sitting outside and listening to birds or whatever. Find a little bit of a happy thought, just one, you know, appreciate something. Maybe it's a glass of wine. Maybe it's your cup of coffee. Maybe you smoke and it's just enjoying your cigarette. It doesn't really matter. But if you can fill yourself with good stuff for just a couple of minutes, you are going to have shifted your vibe. You are going to have created new chemicals in your brain that are going to transfer throughout your body. And then once you're feeling better, the vibe that you're putting out to the world is going to feel better. And now you've literally helped humanity. Just that easy, right? So that is honestly the goal for the week. Pay attention to what you're thinking. Pay attention to how you're feeling. To start with an awareness that it is really, I think it takes time to get to see these things. I think it takes time to get to know how it is that we're thinking and feeling and all of that stuff. Because again, it changes from place to place to place and person to person. So just observe. Just set yourself in observation mode. Pay attention. And then start to just make simple shifts. And again, that simple shift is just feeling good on purpose for a couple of minutes every day. You will shift out of whatever funk you're in, like, so quick. It's the most amazing thing. 2 minutes a day, then up it, do like twice a day, and then do it like 3 times a day. You can listen to a song, you can smell good things. It is so easy. Don't make it complicated. It does not have to be complicated. All right, I'm going to go to comments here really quick. Janice, she says, when I meet someone for the first time, I either like them or I don't. I listen to my gut, not my heart. Very smart. Yeah, people put off a vibe. And if there's something about them that you don't like, it's a pretty good idea to trust that. Now, always keep in mind that sometimes people do have off days. So just because, like, someone might have just been in a really horrible mood. So when it comes to new people, I would say, like, be a little open-minded maybe, and like for the next encounter, because there is a chance that, you know, that might change. If it doesn't, well, you know, bye-bye. Jennifer Waters, how can I feel good when I live with grief every day since my son died? I feel guilty that I'm sometimes happy with him being gone. Jennifer Waters, I am so sorry, and I'm sending you out as much good stuff as I can. Grief changes this very much. This is a completely different conversation. When you're in grief, you're not really allowed to feel better, and that's just a fact. Unfortunately, like, you can have moments of feeling better, but the absolute truth is that you're down. the vibe is down, you're grieving, but that is an acceptable kind of a down, if that makes sense. It is acceptable to grieve. You have to grieve. Of course, you miss your son. Of course, you miss your person. So this conversation is not ideal for grief because, as much as we need to shift how we're thinking and how we're feeling, as a human being, you have to experience the negative emotion. So if you're angry about something, you may as well allow yourself to be angry about something. You do deserve to have those. That is the human condition. It is the human condition. Grief is a part of that. And you're not going to heal in your grief until you're on the other side of that. And in all actuality, that takes a very long time. And so it is important to kind of balance that out a little bit as you are grieving. You're going to want to try to feel okay sometimes, but the absolute truth is you're going to feel like crap, and that's just okay. So grieve the loss. Absolutely grieve it. Be sad if there's a reason, like what did you say? You feel guilty because you almost sometimes happy with him being gone. That doesn't come on its own. So that just kind of shows me that there's a reason that you would feel that way. Maybe he was struggling for a long time. Maybe that was with an illness. Maybe that was with an addiction. Maybe that was something. And the entire time that they're suffering, you were probably suffering too. And I'm sure, of course, there comes a relief that part of it is over. And I don't think that's necessarily bad. I think that's a pretty normal human thing. That there's a bittersweet quality sometimes to someone's passing. It doesn't mean that you're happy that they're gone, but damn, there can be relief on the other end of that. And so I don't know that I would feel guilty. I think that is perfectly normal and acceptable. If you're stuck in a grief state, are you actually really stuck? Let me just give you like my parameters of grief as medium, right? Like, the first year is absolutely horrible. The first year is so numbing and so odd. And so like you don't even know what's hit you, to be honest with you. That's how I feel. It's like everything is just like you're just kind of going through the motions. Nothing feels real. And then we have that 1 year anniversary that's coming up, like pushing us into the second year. And a lot of people have this, they kind of, I think they're excited, like in a way that they believe that they're going to find relief after that time. So there's a lot of emotions and they're dreading that day because it somehow is going to take them back, even though they haven't let it go for that entire year, right? But I think they are expecting relief, and they're so sad when that relief doesn't come. And I hate to say it, that is so normal. Like usually the second year is a little bit worse than the first because it's a little bit more of reality is set in, and it's a very uncomfortable place to be. When you've had those losses, like your son or your spouse, your partner, your parents, just depending on the when they passed, were they older, that changes things a little bit. Grief is different for everyone, or every passing brings a different type of a grief. But unfortunately, it is so normal to feel really crummy for several years, and just I feel like that is such bad news because you just want to feel better. But you're going to feel like crap. It's going to be an up and down thing, and just know that that's normal. And give yourself little breaks if you can by, having a day out. Allow yourself a little bit of normalcy if you possibly can. So, again, grief, it changes this whole conversation. It does. It's not the same. And you should not expect yourself to be able to ride through this with just simple shifts in thinking. Is very different. Very, very different. All right, you guys. So, Melissa Hall, I pick up on a lot of different vibes and it gets overwhelming. I don't think I really gave you guys tools to handle that outside. One of the best ways, honestly, to combat that is, first of all, to understand what's yours and what is not yours. So this, is a part of that awareness that if you kind of do what I said and live in that awareness of your thoughts and your feelings from people to people, place to place, thing to thing, then you'll kind of know what's you and what's not. If you're picky, if you realize that you are carrying around things that don't belong to you, then you can chuck them a little bit easier, right? You can say, man, this doesn't belong to me. And you can literally like visualizations are fantastic. So let's just pretend that like you put everybody else's crap in your hand and you literally just flick it, stick it in a straw and make a spit bomb, whatever. I mean, like there's so many different ways that you can do that. If you're out in public and you feel uncomfortable because the energy is big and there's vibe, and again, it's palpable, you can feel it in your body. You can, visualize like an aura basically, and you can visualize yourself sucking that in to yourself. Like, so it's closer to your body. Not everyone is okay with visualizations though, and that feels a bit uncomfortable. So then the next thing that I would tell someone to do if they're uncomfortable with visualizations, and even if you're not, if you like visualizations, another thing to try, honestly, is just to allow that energy to flow through, not stay. It's just, you're just going to allow yourself to feel it. You're not going to allow yourself to freak out. I think this takes a little while to master, but you certainly can, where it's much more comfortable, I guess, if you're just allowing it. Most of the time, what makes us uncomfortable is like we're fighting the feelings that come along with that, feeling vibrations and energy. We fight it because it feels odd. And if you have any type of a need to control things, like I did, I mean, anyone with an anxiety has a need to control things. Like, so if you're someone who's naturally just an anxious person, even if you don't have an anxiety disorder or something, you're going to find that those things are a bit more uncomfortable for you because you can't necessarily control that, right? So allow the energy to flow through, don't fight it, and you're going to find that actually helps you ride that out a little bit easier. All right, you guys, I'm going to take off for the day. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Good Shit Show. We will be back not next week, or no, maybe it's the week after that. So I think we're good for next week, right, Todd? Am I messing that up? Okay, so I think we are not live on June 3rd. So next week, Friday, we will be live. You're going to be able to listen to this on WLTK-DB.com. You can also find the WLTK-DB Facebook page. This is where it's going to be broadcast live on a weekly basis, as well as YouTube. So you can subscribe to WLTK-DB on Facebook and or YouTube and sign up for the notifications. I think if you just like push the buttons, you'll get notifications that the show is getting ready to happen. And so that is that. WLTK-DB has a ton of great shows. If you are into paranormal things, if you are into the psychic medium stuff, whatever, then WLTK-DB has got a show for you. Just check out their website. You can see all of the fun stuff that they have going on. I swear there's like a show every day of the week these days, for the most part, right, Todd? Like, man, the station is just growing. There's a lot of great stuff out there. So make sure that you are checking out the station page. And that is really it. Be aware of your thoughts this week. Be aware of how it is that you're feeling and recognize that those are the most important things. And that is honestly what is driving everything to you. It is causing you to feel how you're feeling. It is causing you to get the things that you want or continue to get the things that you don't want. That awareness of yourself is literally everything. Start with the thoughts, start with the feelings. And you're actually going to watch your life shift in the most amazing ways and very, very fast. So that is it for this week's Good Shit Show. I will see you next week on WLTK-DB.com. Have a good one.